Ladies, let's talk. Too often, men feel misunderstood, not because they don't want to communicate, but because they've been conditioned to hold things in. They move through life with expectations weighing on them, pressure to be strong, to provide, to protect. But deep down, there are things they wish you knew, things they don't always know how to say. And today, I'm going to break it down for you. When a man goes silent, it's easy to assume something is wrong. Many women start overanalyzing, questioning if he's upset, losing interest, or even thinking about walking away. But silence for most men isn't a sign of emotional detachment, it's a coping mechanism. Men process emotions differently than women. While women often express their feelings through conversation, men tend to internalize them, working through their thoughts in solitude. From a young age, men are taught to suppress their emotions. They are conditioned to be strong, to be providers, to be problem solvers. Society has placed this expectation on them: handle things without complaining, figure it out without needing help. Because of this, when a man is dealing with stress, frustration, or even personal challenges, his natural instinct isn't to talk about it, but to withdraw. He steps back, not because he doesn't care about the relationship, but because he needs time to sort things out on his own. Women, on the other hand, often see communication as a means of connection. When they're struggling, they want to talk, to share, to be reassured. So when a man doesn't communicate in the same way, it can feel confusing. The mistake many women make is assuming his silence means he's angry, distant, or uninterested. They might push for answers, ask what's wrong repeatedly, or even assume he's upset with them personally. But in reality, a man's silence is rarely about his partner. More often than not, it's about something he's battling internally: work stress, financial pressure, personal insecurities, or just the weight of life itself. One of the most important things to understand is that men need space to process their thoughts before they can articulate them. If a man is going through something, he might not be able to put it into words immediately. He doesn't want to speak out of frustration, say the wrong thing, or expose emotions he hasn't fully worked through yet. So he takes a step back, not to create distance, but to find clarity. This doesn't mean he doesn't want support. It doesn't mean he doesn't value your presence. In fact, the way a woman handles his silence can either make him feel safe or push him further away. If a woman reacts with pressure, accusations, or frustration, it makes him feel like he has to defend himself rather than open up. But when a woman gives him space with trust and understanding, it strengthens the relationship. Men don't always know how to express what they're feeling in the moment, but when they do come back to talk, it's usually because they've processed things in a way that makes sense to them. And when they feel safe, they'll open up naturally without force. The key is to trust that his silence isn't about shutting you out. It's about figuring things out in a way that allows him to show up as the man he wants to be. Men are natural providers. They take pride in being able to support, protect, and take care of the people they love. Society has ingrained in them that their worth is tied to what they can offer financially, emotionally, or physically. But beyond just being needed for what they do, men deeply desire to be appreciated for who they are. A man can give endlessly, but if he feels like he's only valued for what he provides rather than the person he is, it creates a silent emotional distance. Many women assume that because men don't always verbalize their emotional needs, they don't have them. But the truth is, men crave validation just as much as women do. They want to feel seen, respected, and acknowledged, not just when they do something big, but in the small, everyday moments too. A man will pour himself into his work, his family, and his relationship, but if he feels like his efforts go unnoticed, it slowly diminishes his motivation to keep giving at that same level. A simple thank you or I appreciate you goes further than most people realize. Men may not always express it, but they notice when their efforts are acknowledged. When a woman recognizes his hard work, his sacrifices, or even the small things he does without being asked, it makes him feel valued. And when a man feels valued, he is more willing to invest in the relationship on a deeper level. Respect is another essential part of appreciation. Men are highly sensitive to respect, even if they don't openly say it. Feeling disrespected, whether through dismissive words, criticism, or being taken for granted, can be one of the most damaging things to a man's spirit. It's not just about praising him when he succeeds, but standing by him even when he's struggling. It's about making him feel like he is more than what he can provide. Sometimes a man will test this without realizing it. He may go through a financial setback, a career challenge, or a moment of personal doubt. How his partner reacts in these moments shapes his perception of the relationship. If he feels like his worth is only tied to his ability to produce, it creates an emotional disconnect. But if he feels supported, encouraged, and reassured that he is still loved and valued despite what he can or cannot provide, it builds a bond that strengthens over time. Men may not always ask for appreciation directly, but they feel it deeply when it's given. It's not about grand gestures or constant reassurance. It's about small, consistent moments that remind him he is more than just his responsibilities. The way a woman speaks to him, the way she acknowledges his efforts, and the way she supports him even in the moments where he feels less than his best. All of this plays a role in how deeply connected he feels in the relationship. From a young age, men are taught to be strong, to hold it together, to suppress emotions that might make them seem weak. Society conditions them to believe that vulnerability is a risk, that showing too much emotion can lead to judgment, rejection, or even ridicule. Over time, this conditioning creates a deep internal struggle. Men crave emotional connection just as much as women do, but they have been wired to believe that opening up is dangerous. For many men, vulnerability is not about willingness, but about safety. A man will only open up to someone he feels completely safe with. If he senses even the slightest chance that his emotions will be used against him, dismissed, or belittled, he will shut down. It's not that he doesn't want to share, he just doesn't want to risk being misunderstood or appearing weak in the eyes of the person he loves. Many women say they want a man who is emotionally open, but when a man actually expresses feelings, he is sometimes met with impatience or a lack of understanding. If a man shares his fears, his doubts, or his struggles, and he is met with criticism or indifference, he learns to keep those emotions locked away. He may not say anything in the moment, but he takes mental notes. The next time he feels something deeply, he'll remember that it wasn't safe to express it before, and he will hold it in instead. A man's ability to be vulnerable is directly tied to the way his emotions are received. If he feels like he is being judged, if his words are twisted against him, or if he is made to feel weak for expressing himself, he will stop trying. But when he feels truly heard, when he knows that his emotions are being received with understanding rather than criticism, he begins to trust on a different level. He starts to open up in ways he never has before. Vulnerability in a man doesn't always look the way people expect. Sometimes it's in the way he talks about his dreams, his fears, or the things that weigh on his mind. Other times, it's in the small ways he lets his guard down, showing his playful side, expressing affection, or revealing parts of himself that he doesn't share with the world. Every time a man allows himself to be vulnerable, he is taking a risk. He is trusting that the person he is opening up to will handle his emotions with care. If a woman truly wants a man to open up, she must create a space where he feels emotionally secure. This means listening without judgment, being patient when he struggles to find the right words, and showing him through actions that his feelings matter. It's about understanding that just because he doesn't express himself in the same way doesn't mean he isn't feeling deeply. The more a man feels safe in his vulnerability, the stronger the emotional connection becomes. Love is often given in the way a person wants to receive it, rather than in the way their partner truly needs it. Many people assume that the effort they put into a relationship automatically translates into the other person feeling loved, but that isn't always the case. Men, just like women, have their own unique ways of feeling valued and connected, and when their emotional needs aren't met, they can slowly begin to withdraw, even if they don't say anything. Every man has a different way of receiving love. Some thrive on words of affirmation, needing to hear that they're appreciated and respected. Others feel love through physical touch, finding reassurance in the simplest gestures, holding hands, a hug, or just resting a hand on his shoulder. For some, it's about acts of service, the small things that show thoughtfulness and care. Some men feel the deepest connection through quality time, knowing that undivided attention means they are a priority. And then there are those who feel love through gifts, not because of materialism, but because it represents thoughtfulness and effort. One of the biggest mistakes made in relationships is assuming that what works for one person automatically works for the other. A woman may express love in ways that feel natural to her. Maybe she constantly checks in on him, sends long messages, or plans thoughtful surprises. But if his love language is different, he may not fully receive those gestures in the way she intends. Meanwhile, he may be showing love in his own way, perhaps by fixing things for her, providing stability, or always making sure she's taken care of. But if she doesn't recognize it, she might feel emotionally disconnected. Even though he is giving love in the way he understands, men don't always articulate what they need emotionally. Sometimes they don't even fully realize it themselves. But when a woman takes the time to observe, to listen, and to understand what truly makes him feel connected, the relationship transforms. It's not about grand gestures. It's about consistency. It's about knowing what makes him feel valued and making the effort to love him in a way that resonates with his heart. Respect plays a huge role in how a man feels love. Many men interpret love through the lens of respect, feeling acknowledged, heard, and appreciated for who they are. If they feel disrespected, dismissed, or like they constantly have to prove themselves, they begin to close off emotionally. But when a man feels that his partner understands him and genuinely values him, he becomes more open, more affectionate, and more willing to pour into the relationship. Understanding a man's love language isn't about changing who you are. It's about meeting him where he is and creating a connection that feels fulfilling for both partners. When a man feels truly loved in the way that speaks to his soul, he will naturally reciprocate, and the relationship will thrive in ways that feel effortless and deeply fulfilling. Men aren't as complicated as they seem. They just want to feel valued, safe, and loved in a world that constantly tells them to be strong. If you can understand these four things, not only will your relationships thrive, but you'll unlock a deeper level of connection, trust, and love. So ladies, are you ready to love your man the way he needs to be loved? Because when you do, he'll give you a love you never have to question.